All right, hello. It's time for Ask Me Anything, or AMA as it was presented to me. I'm Paul Henry, and I just sit here, and you probably know more about this than I do. All the questions have been tabulated by some bloody extraordinary intellectual system on the computer machine. And so these are the questions that you wanted me to ask, that you wanted me to answer. In an ironic twist, I've had them printed out on paper. Some of you may not recognise this, it's copy paper, and I'm probably the first person ever to do an AMA who's actually reading them off a piece of paper. And welcome to my hood too. This is the set and everything. This is my glass of wine, which I'm not technically allowed when I'm on television, but since this is technically not television. Question 1. So question 1 includes a photograph of me naked. It comes from Confused of Epsom. Can you explain this at all? Yes, I can. It's a picture which was in my most recent book, Outraged, and the text that accompanied the picture explains it entirely. I can only assume because you managed to get the picture, you read the text, in which case your question is null and void. Thank you, Confused of Epsom. Hamish Campbell wrote, would you rather have a bell go off every single time you were aroused, or have your past and future web browsing history available to everyone? Now, Hamish, that is a moderately interesting question, I thought. Which would I rather? So obviously, there is only one obvious correct answer, and that is you'd rather have a bell off every time you're aroused. In my case, that would be a constantly deafening cacophony of noise at all times. And I don't know why. It's not that I spend hardly any time on the internet. It's not that I'm particularly bothered that people might see what I'm Googling or searching for. But the thought that everyone could see it at any time, no matter, I mean, it would hamper your efforts, wouldn't it? Thanks, Hamish. Ashton McDonald. Next fight for life, you versus Kim.com. What do you say, Paul? No, is what I say. And because why would I do it? Seriously, Ashton, why would I do it? They don't pay, so there's no money in it. God only knows I don't need the publicity, do I? I mean, look at me, for Christ's sake. I'm on Ask Me Anything. Look, I've got my own show, so I don't need the publicity, and they're not paying. Do I need to spend 6 months terrified in training to fight a great big fat man who will sweat all over me? I don't think so. Clickety, you know, that's correct. Does it affect or offend you that so many people criticise you and that many feel it their right to slag off about you? Personally, I absolutely love your sense of humour. You're my fave presenter. Clickety, thank you very much for that. No, it doesn't bother me at all. I mean, the things people say about me says much more about them than it ever does about me, doesn't it? I mean, sometimes it amazes and entertains me that people can be bothered to drone on and on about the most insignificant little things I might do. But good for them. If I entertain people, and God only knows I entertain people, then all's well. Sarah Waltham. You seem pretty bulletproof and confident, but you must have at least one irrational fear. I'm quite frightened of not counting things because, of course, I am obsessive compulsive, as has been chronicled many times. And I do have, because you say an irrational fear, I don't think I have any rational fears because, I mean, what's the worst that can happen, you always say? What is the worst that can happen, you know, in any given situation? Normally, the absolute worst that can happen is that you were tortured and killed. And at the end of the day, it's only going to happen once. But as far as irrational fears go, I am obsessive compulsive, and so I do count things. I don't count everything, but as soon as I think of something that needs counting, if I don't count it, then I have an irrational fear that something terrible will happen. So I'm one of those people that I do go back to the house to check things. I do look at a building. There are a couple of buildings in Auckland in particular that I can't pass without counting pillars or windows or something like that. And it's not like, I mean, it's Auckland, for God's sake. The number of pillars and windows don't change that often. Thanks, Sarah. I'm the real Chris is the name of this next person. Thank you for your question. Is it true that you're mean when you're hungry? Yes, everybody is. Duckman, will you be joining the panel on 7 Days anytime soon? Your quick wit would fit right in with the rest of the crew. See, I don't think it would. I've been asked on many occasions to go on the panel on 7 Days, and I've repeatedly said no. I think I'd rather fight Kim Dotcom in the fight for life, because you see, I'm not a stand-up comic. I don't have well-rehearsed ad-libs. It's not the way I hang. I'm just, I wouldn't give them the steam off my piss, I suppose, is the offensive answer to that. And it's not that I don't like the program, it's just I wouldn't want to be part of it. Grant McLaughlin, thanks, Duckman. Grant McLaughlin, if there was one politician that you would like to punch in the face, who would it be? Peter Dunne. Just because it looks like he needs a damn good punching in the face, don't you think? It's the hair thing, it's the whole... Because at the end of the day, none of them annoy me enough to want to punch any of them in the face, because I'm a lover, not a hater. But there is something about Peter Dunne that shouts out, punch me, hard. Thanks, Grant. Sam Welsh. This is a serious question, Paul. Do you believe that pineapple belongs on pizza? Now, here's my answer to your question, Sam, because I quite like your pineapple question. The answer is yes, obviously it does, because there are a couple of legitimate pizzas which require pineapple to exist. So technically the answer to your question is yes, of course it belongs on some pizzas, not all pizzas, good heavens no. Would I ever order one of those pizzas? No, because I'm a savoury man. And more than just being a savoury man, I am absolutely against the whole mixing savoury and sweet, you know. So no, I would never order it. But yes, in answer to your question, it does belong on some pizzas. Araha. So now that you're not exactly a National Party candidate, see, this could be going in a funny direction, this question, couldn't it? Remember how before I said, you know, quite often the things people say says more about them than it does about you. Anyway, let's give Araha the benefit of the doubt for now. So, now that you're not exactly a National Party candidate, in brackets, like you have been previously, out of brackets, can we expect you to keep up your on-screen unquestioning support for John Key and your old party? Especially as it's an election year. Could we expect you to fess up to your ties with the National Party, in brackets, full disclosure, out of brackets, before interviews this election, question mark? Araha, thank you very much for your question. But clearly it's not important. I don't need to do it because, as is evidenced by your question, you know. And if you know, Araha, I suspect everybody does. The fact is, I want to know where people come from when I have them on my television set. I want to know what their beliefs are. And you see, I am one of the few entirely honest television presenters. You know exactly what I believe politically. And so you can weigh up the way I handle interviews based on that knowledge. Of course, I suspect, Araha, your prejudice will prevent you from truly understanding how absolutely fair I am. But that doesn't bother me. Thanks for your question. Unnamed. You don't have to thank someone that goes by unnamed, do you? What's the 3 best things about your mum? It's a bloody good question. You should have put your name to it. 3 best things about my mum. She loves me in an absolutely unquestioning way. She is really, really hard-working, although she's next to death now in a home for the bewildered. But she is really, really hard-working, and I admire hard work. And also, she has an adventurous soul, and that is a very lovely thing in a person, an adventurous soul. Thanks for that. Jenny L. Heron. Jenny, you wrote, are you trolling everyone when you drop train wreck comments, sitting back with popcorn, enjoying watching everyone get wound up? I suppose, Jenny, I've sort of half answered that question before, haven't I, really? In terms of, you know, it says more about them than it does about me. And the fact that it can be quite entertaining watching people get worked up into a frazzle about the things that I've said. The reality is I don't troll. Quite often I don't think about what I'm saying before I say it because it's so much easier not to. You imagine going through your entire life rehearsing what you're going to say. I mean, God almighty, no one pays you that much, do they? It's like when you're on television being someone you're not. You know, that's much harder than just being who you are. So the reality is I say things just because I say them. And when there's an outrageous response to something I've said, so be it. It can be entertaining. And I can eat popcorn because even though I'm gluten-free, you can eat popcorn. TK Samuels, bro, your body is looking tight. Got any advice for shredding that difficult midsection? You say shredding. Do you mean shedding? You say shredding. I don't think it's a good idea to shred your midsection. Now, here's an interesting thing. Just like not rehearsing anything I say, I haven't done a day's exercise in my entire life, and I'm 53 years old. So if I look good in any way, shape or form, it is purely luck. And, of course, the good fortune of fantastic genes. So what was the question? Got any advice for shredding that difficult midsection? No, I haven't. But here's I would say this. Don't worry too much about how you look. I mean, obviously, you know, if you're really ugly or really, really fat, it would be good just to do something about it, if just for the sake of other people that have to look at you. But if you're just okay, then okay, as long as you're happy, that's the most important thing. Sarah Manley NZ, but it's all one word, no gaps in your name. Sarah Manley NZ. Which New Zealand town would you happily bulldoze? You know, I want to say Palmerston North, because there is very little about Palmerston North that a fleet of bobcats couldn't put right. But I'm not going to say Palmerston North, I'm going to say Hamilton. Patricia. Odd spelling. What qualifies you to be an authority on anything at all? Is your stupidity a natural trait, or did you hone the skill over time? You notice, Patricia, that I chose not to just correct your spelling mistake and move on. I don't know. I mean, you might think it's stupidity. Some people don't think it's stupidity. I don't particularly care. Did you hone the skill over time? Everything is honed over time, isn't it? Without even trying, you accidentally hone over time. Like one day you'll grow up. What qualifies you to be an authority on anything at all? I think it's pretty obvious to anyone that spent any time with me at all that I am an authority on everything. I qualify myself. But thank you for your question, Patricia. Apparently we're giving a cup to the best question. Tanya Daly. Hi, Paul. I'd like to ask you about nudity. Are you indeed a genuine nudist? Because I'm wondering when you choose to be nude. Clearly it's not when you're war corresponding or television broadcasting. Do you enter the realm... Well, hang on, Tanya, how many bloody questions have you got here? Do you enter the realms of designated nudist retreats? How do you find... Do you enter the realms? How do you find them? How long do you spend at them? What feelings do you experience whilst there? It's hard to come back to mainstream society after being there, is it? Does naturalism help channel your ideas for the show? There's 6. There was another question before and 2 comments. So, Tanya, this is Ask Me Anything, not Ask Me Everything, isn't it, really? You were trying to get away with it. So, am I a real nudist? Probably not, actually, because there are a lot of things that I don't do nude because they would be stupid to do nude. And some people, I don't know, they're nude for, I don't know, is it sexual proclivities or something like that? I've certainly been to some odd places where people have done some odd things sexually. Very odd. Really worryingly odd things. You know, that'll make you go, shit, is that legal? And sometimes it's not. But the fact of the matter is, are you a genuine nudist? So probably not genuine. Because I'm wondering when you choose to be nude, you know, appropriate times, quite often at home, in the garden, etc. Clearly it's not when you're war corresponding. No, well, that would be bloody stupid, wouldn't it? Quite frankly, Tanya. Television broadcasting, no, that would be stupid. It's freezing cold in here. Do you enter the realms of dead? Sometimes I do go to designated nudist retreats. And it's entirely appropriate to be nude when you are sunbathing or swimming. I think those 2 things are entirely appropriate. And very nice, you should try it, as long as the water's warm and it's, you know, sunny. But other times, no. Thanks for your question. John, have you ever had a killer fry-up in the nude? What is wrong with you people? You're kind of obsessed. If so, did you cheat and wear an apron? Well, I think I've answered that question, haven't I, John? It would be ridiculous to stand next to a barbecue naked. Matthew Hogan. Paul, what would your death row meal be? That is a good question. That is, and it's not like rocket science to ask such a good question, because that is one of the recognised good questions of all time. I am gluten-free. But if you're on death row, you don't need to worry, because you'll probably shit yourself when they kill you anyway. So it would be something absolutely laden in gluten. I'm thinking it would be macaroni cheese, not with gluten-free macaroni either. Macaroni cheese, a really good macaroni cheese with bacon and tomato. Thanks, Matthew. Zorro. Is that your real name? When we met in Christchurch, You said you liked my shirt and commented that not everyone could pull paisley off. However, you didn't elaborate as to whether or not it worked for me. Did it? I can't remember you. I may have said that just to break the ice. For the life of me, I can't remember who you are. Not a lot of people can pull paisley off. You wouldn't say no one. I mean, maybe you did, maybe you didn't, maybe I was taking the piss. It's hard to say. I mean, you know what the shirt looks like. Put it on, stand in front of the mirror. And maybe if I saw you, I would remember you. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be rude. But if you'd introduced yourself as Zorro, I probably would have remembered you. Thank you for your question. Liana Paul, are you aware that you suffer from Asperger's? Is that rude? A bit rude. Although you might be, I don't know, you could be a medical professional. I didn't finish medical school myself. No, I don't think I suffer from Asperger's. I think I have, sometimes I think I'm on shaky ground mentally, but I don't think I suffer from Asperger's. But maybe you know more than I do. Thank you. Oscar Jackson, if you were to write a children's book, what lesson would kids learn at the end of it? I quite like children's books which don't intend to teach children anything. See, here's the thing about children. Children grow up far too early now, and it's our fault that they do. See, the thing is, so much of what people do nowadays is designed to, or at the very least does, steal the magic from children's eyes, resulting in children growing up too soon. Would that we could create an environment whereby children were children for much, 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 much longer, rather than constantly telling them that they need to grow up and hurry up and move on with their lives and get to the next milestone, because why? We're in a hurry? What the fuck for? So if I were to write a children's book, it would be a magical lesson if there were a lesson at all. It would be a children's book that kept the magic alive for as long as possible. And if you have young children now and you're watching this on the internet, whatever the hell it is, then, you know, think about your kids and think about keeping them young, and think about when you say to them things like, oh, quickly, come inside, tea's ready. What they're doing outside may be a lot more bloody important than tea, you know, playing in the garden, playing on a tree, something like that. It's a lot more important than coming in and eating their dinner. So just think, because children are not children for that long, and if you hurry it up, then effectively that's child abuse as far as I'm concerned. There are plenty of bloody government departments in Lem Brown trying to hurry people through childhood. Kathy Barnes, what is something people often get wrong about you? Quite often people think I care what they have to say, and I almost never do. Like, you read things that people say in the newspaper about me and that, and people think, oh, we're being so clever, we're criticising them, and then they write things in the paper that, you know, oh, obviously I didn't like this or I didn't like this. I actually don't care. It is water off a duck's back. It's even less than water off a duck's back. Thank you, Kathy, that was a good question. Paul Fan, what's your best pickup line? I'm Paul Henry. Scott Hermond, who have you most enjoyed interviewing? And if you could ask anybody one question and have them answer it honestly, who would you ask and what would the question be? That's very probing, Scott. I have this funny thing that as soon as I finish doing something in life, it's dead to me. Not everything, obviously, is in that category, but just the thought of trawling through the probably thousands of people that I've interviewed in what has been a horrendously long career. I don't see it as a career, a horrendously long series of jobs. I lose the will to live just thinking about trying to work out who the most, you know, who I've most enjoyed interviewing. If I could interview anyone that I wanted to, who would it be and what would I ask them? I have a deep affection for Madeleine Albright. And I think she's probably the best Secretary of State, certainly in recent times. And I wouldn't mind sitting down for a dinner with Madeleine Albright. In fact, I'm going to mention her on my program tonight because we're doing this thing tonight. And I've always thought that she's probably the oldest lady I would, you know. So I wouldn't mind taking her for dinner, and endless questions I could ask her. What an amazing woman that woman is. She's very, very old now. Quentin Crisp, was a fantastic interview that I did. The Naked Civil Servant. You remember Quentin Crisp? I'll tell you why he was a great interview. He was a great interview, and I really enjoyed interviewing because he was famous for being him, not for playing a character or singing a song or doing a whatever. He was famous for his own life, and he was fascinating. Annoying and you know, prissy, but fascinating. Patricia, what is one thing no one, not even your mum, knows about you? I once tampered with my mother's medication and didn't tell anyone. There. I'm an open book. Most people know everything about me, and my mother knows everything except that about me, I think, but she's forgotten most of it. But yes, I once tampered with her medication, not in order to make her sicker, but in order to make her better. And it's hard to tell. She was on so much medication, hard to tell whether it worked or not. Mark, what do you think of Australians? Well, Mark, interesting question. I think they're more patriotic than New Zealanders. I think they are better looking than New Zealanders. Generalisation, of course, in both points. But apart from that, I pretty much think they're the same as New Zealanders and a vast array of people from other countries. Thanks, Mark. John Hart. Have you found out that Vanessa May is one of the world's top violinists now? I believe some of the people at TV3 can help you by lending you a CD, then you will change your mind about her. I didn't need my mind changed about her, actually. The reason you mentioned that, for people that don't know, is I mentioned that she actually tried a sort of a career change and represented, I don't know, which country? China at the Winter Olympics? In some downhill, everything in the Winter Olympics is downhill, isn't it? Isn't that the thing about the Winter Olympics? It's all based on gravity. Anyway. Oh, shit, I was going to wear that tonight. It is. It's all based on gravity. That's a funny line. So anyway, the fact is that she came last. And so I made the point, you know, maybe she should go back to a day job. You know, I hope she's better at the violin. Funnily enough, I do have a Vanessa May album at home. I think it might be in the car. Thanks for your question, John. Max Dillon Coyle. How did it feel being a National Party candidate in a Conservative electorate election in a safe blue seat, losing to a transsexual from the Labor Party? Possibly a loaded question, Max, but let me assume for one moment that it isn't a loaded question. So there are some inaccuracies in this. How did it feel? Oh, fine. I love politics. Fascination with politics. I took a year out to stand in that electorate for National. Now, it was an interesting electorate. Here's the first thing that you got wrong. Safe blue seat. I think, Max, if you put a bit of effort in, because obviously you too are fascinated in politics, if you put a bit of effort in, you would see that it was far from a safe blue seat. In fact, a fascinating seat. I think I'm right in saying it was the only electorate in the country where the Alliance, the old Alliance, actually was the second highest polling party once. I don't think there was any other electorate where the Alliance got to second highest polling. So certainly it was not a safe blue seat. Losing to a transsexual from the Labor Party. Interesting. Here's what I did when I stood. I decided just to be myself. And I assumed that people would be, you know, would find it interesting that here was someone being honest. But honesty doesn't always pay in politics, I discovered. But it was a fascinating experience. Thanks for your question, Max. Ciao. If you were the Prime Minister, what would you change? Not the flag. I would not be changing the flag if I was the Prime Minister. I'm actually quite happy with New Zealand. I think this is a damn good country, and I think we're damn lucky to live here. I'm just going to speed up just a little bit. So what would I change? I would create an environment where people who do not contribute, who are lazy, who are antisocial, realised beyond any doubt at all that they were living off the backs of hard-working New Zealanders, and they would be required to show their gratitude for that. And when they didn't show their gratitude, they would be penalised. Because there are too many people in this country which used to just a very short period of time ago be made up with adventurers and people that came here and challenged themselves and challenged the country to create a future for all of us in a remarkably short period of time. There are too many people who think they deserve a life off the backs of others from cradle to grave. It's ludicrous. So that's one thing that I would change. I'd come down like a ton of bricks on those bludgers. Sarah, Paul, Bull semen and energy drinks. Let's get the facts out there before we all die from mass hysteria or, well, bull semen. Sarah, you're speaking about clearly a major crisis which I am unaware of. So obviously either I should look into that, which of course I will never do, just saying it to be nice. Ooh, nice paisley shirt. Or you're going to have to carry the baton on this, I'm afraid, Sarah. Asen Fairbrother. Hi, Paul. Love the show. Yay. Is it true that you and Len Brown ran a gay rights organisation based in the Philippines back in 2003? Yes, that is true. We both started the gay rights organisation in the Philippines in 2003, and I think Len is still, I moved on, but I think Len's still running it. Spammer, what would you do with your life if you were told you had 6 months left to live? All right, so here's the first thing. I wouldn't believe whoever told me that. It would be a horrible, horrible thing to be told, and I would not believe it. 6 months, ludicrous, but I would, just in case, instantly stop working and go out on my boat, a long way out. Brad Pennyfeather. As simple as it sounds, what gets you out of bed in the morning and what motivates you? Well, that doesn't sound simple at all. That's highly complex. Usually what gets me out of bed in the morning is the certain knowledge that I'm late for something, because I don't like getting out of bed in the morning. And what motivates me? I'm a little bit motivated by money, but hardly motivated by money. I love challenges. In fact, I'm probably not motivated by money at all. I might have been once, but I'm not really motivated by money. No, challenges. I quite like, if something is a challenge, I quite like it. I have a very short attention span, so as soon as challenge sort of turns into normal day in the office, I sort of tend not to get out of bed. Thanks, Brad. Buff Jesus. That's the next person. Most interesting thing about this is probably your name, but that remains to be seen. Paul, a friend of mine once claimed that she ran into you in the Mount Victoria tunnel at around midnight. Apparently when she found you, you were leaning over the balustrade screaming at the traffic. She also claims that you explained how good it made you feel and that the two of you then spent 20 minutes or so shouting obscenities at passing vehicles. Can you confirm / deny, ? Thank you for your question, Buff. I think your friend's lying. I don't remember it, and I think I would remember that. I think I would remember that. But it does sound like the sort of thing I would do, potentially, or would have done, and it does sound cathartic, but no, I have no recollection of it. And finally, look at that, that's good timing, isn't it? Almost past. Finally, Southland Farmer. Thoughts on New Zealand dairy farming? For or against it? I tell you what, Southland Farmer, we're going to send you a cup because even although yours was the last question, and so the last one that made the cut, it is probably my favourite question of all. To answer it seriously, I am actually for farming in general. I don't tend to sort of isolate one particular genre of farming from another. But if I were to do that, I am particularly for New Zealand dairy farming because of its opportunity to assist us all in terms of foreign currency and the gross domestic product. So in short, thoughts on dairy farming for or against, I'm very definitely in the for camp, even although I appreciate that some New Zealand dairy farmers are destroying the environment for our children's children's children, increasing greenhouse gases, and we're all doomed. I say tongue-in-cheek. So thank you. You have a cup coming your way. And that's it. Oh dear, the shirt was a bit open. That's it. Thank you very much for, I don't know, whatever you were doing. And certainly thank you for your questions. I have a real job to do, of course. This is not part of my job. I'm not getting paid to be here. I was given this nasty, cheap Merlot, which, you know, I've got a rag here. I don't know why. So thank you very much for joining me. We've got to past, safe and sound. I will be on television again tonight, possibly having had to change my shirt. I'm not sure, but I will investigate that a little bit later. Could be a few red wine stains. And see you at 10:30 tonight on TV3. Thank you very much. Goodbye.